谁要查了谁？哎！
男人们戦过中国女人们
殺した犯したそのためにこそ西南に来たんだ
非让你看着不可，出了事儿就全村人的命。
钱囊王广，生龙活宝，日本的啥好东西？
哎呦，你个家伙死了，你可拉花！
来た。どう？凶器を持ってるのが見える。
Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of our podcast, Heroic Purgatory, an Asia Cinema podcast. My name is John, and with me, as always, is Jason. Jason, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thanks, John. How are you?
Fine, same as usual. Pretty good, considering. So, the episode that we'll discuss today is the Chinese 2000 film directed by Wen Jiang, Devils on the Doorstep. But before we get into that, we'll do our usual, where we talk about how our weeks have been, what everyone been watching or reading or doing, etc. So why don't you start, Jason?
So I've started doing more overtime at work now that everything's opened back up again.
So when you say open back up, is it full capacity now?
It's not full capacity, it's reduced. In terms of where I work, we have limited numbers of people coming in. I work in a museum. So We're only open certain days of the week, and we only allow 200 people per hour. And so weekdays are usually the quietest. Weekends are the busiest because all the children are off school. And during this pandemic, numbers have dropped significantly during the weekdays.
That makes perfect sense.
But I've started doing more overtime because film crews have been using the museum as a location. And once the public leave, the prop team come in and redecorate various parts of the building. So being able to observe as, some movie magic goes on.
So I have a couple of questions about that. First of all, the first one is just are museums running at full staff now, or is it the staff still reduced?
Staff are reduced. People have been placed on furlough if they have medical conditions that prevent them from traveling safely to work, and staff that can work at home are allowed to work at home.
Okay.
So since I'm in a public-facing role, I have to go into the museum.
And when you say, the second question is, when you say film crews, is this something that's new to the pandemic, or has this always been going on at the museums that you work at?
It's always been going on at the museums. Due to the nature of the place, we've got sort of neoclassical architecture and like a grand main hall and different types of exhibition spaces that provides fertile ground for location designers, location managers to find where to film certain scenes. So we frequently get used as a filming location.
Have you met anybody famous yet?
In terms of famous, mostly British television personalities.
Sure, yeah. I mean, they can. Anybody that I would possibly know.
Have you ever watched Doctor Who?
I know the show, but I've never watched it.
Okay, we've had some of the old Doctor Who's in Matt Smith and Jenna Coleman, who is the assistant. In terms of famous people, no major film stars. Although the city where I live has been used for film locations. Brad Pitt and Marky Mark Wahlberg have travelled. Yeah, so maybe one day I'll be able to meet them. Okay,
yeah. Well, one can always hope.
And in terms of what I've been watching and reading, I watched the Martin Scorsese film The Departed, the 2001 film Series 7, The Contenders, which is a satirical take on reality TV. What else have I watched? I watched a couple of Japanese B-movies, Goke, Body Snatcher from Hell, and Matango, Attack of the Mushroom People. I watched an Italian neo-realist film called Umberto D. And
is that from the director that did Bicycle Thieves?
Secca.
Vittorio De Sica or something like that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is the first time I'd seen Umberto D, and it was on a recommendation from a friend.
I've seen a lot of that. Vittorio De Sica. I've seen a lot of that director's film. I can't remember if Vittorio D is one of them, but anyway, please go on.
Yep, and I watched the Italian horror movie The House of Exorcism, which is a re-edit of Lisa and the Devil, which I watched a couple of weeks ago. And I watched 3 Kiyoshi Kurosawa films, Door Free, a horror movie, The Revenge, A Visit from Fate. Those two are like direct-to-video or V-Cinema releases. And I watched To the Ends of the Earth, which I'm going to review for V-Cinema.
Okay, so that's also a Kiyoshi Kurosawa film?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And I'm trying to complete the game Front Mission Free, which I mentioned a few podcast episodes ago. So I think it's got branching storylines, so 60 missions per story, and I'm about 20 missions from completing one of the storylines.
Is that a first-person shooter?
It's an isometric tactical role-playing game.
Oh, okay.
So robots taking turns shooting at each other.
I see. Okay, that sounds like a busy couple of weeks for you.
Yeah, on top of like trying to keep up on like cinema releases in Japan and
absolutely
writing reviews. Yeah. But yeah, it's trying to spend more time broadening like the films that I watch to go beyond horror, and so like exploring more Italian cinema. Neo-realist cinema is something I need to get into.
Okay, yeah. I was there was a point in my life where I was a huge fan, so I watched around college time, I want to say, although I don't remember exactly, where I watched a bunch of neo-realist Italian films. And it's probably my favorite period of Italian cinema. I don't like the latter part, and I don't like the earlier part that much. With a few exceptions, whereas that small period between the 40s, like mid 40s to late 50s, I've always enjoyed that part of Italian cinema.
Yeah, it's a blind spot for me. So
yeah, no, there's some excellent, there's 3 or 4 excellent directors that you can't go wrong by just looking up their filmography one by one.
Okay, yeah, I'll probably mention them in future episodes of the podcast. And if you have any recommendations, feel free to give them. Yeah,
well, I mean, I'm assuming you've seen Bicycle Thieves, right?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. So it's by the same director. So I would recommend watching it. It's Vittorio De Sica. Bicycle Thieves and Shoe Shine are his sort of 2 best well-known. Roberto Rossellini is another filmmaker that kind of fits exactly the same category. And Federico Fellini was also at the same time period, but I wouldn't qualify. His films were a lot more abstract and avant-garde. That's the best word I can describe him. And they don't exactly fit that neo-realist aesthetic.
Yeah.
But yeah, Roberto Rossellini, Pier Paolo Pasolini, maybe. I'm not sure if he also fits into that, but he was also around the same time.
Okay.
Anyway, So my couple of weeks in terms of watching haven't been as fulfilling as yours or as I'd like to, because like I mentioned off the mic, I was busy at work these couple of weeks because we have a deadline coming up. But I did manage to watch a few. I watched the Vincent Price classic horror House on the Haunted Hill. Oh
yeah, I watched that.
Yeah, this was more of a guilty pleasure watch. I was just bored one night, and this looked like it would have just the right amount of camp that I would appreciate, and it paid off. I wasn't disappointed.
Okay.
So yeah, and I like the twist at the end. No spoilers, but there is a twist, which in itself is a spoiler, I guess. I watched a film that I'm reviewing also for V Cinema called The Paper Tigers. And this is an American film, but it is an almost exclusively Asian cast, and it's a very obvious homage to like Hong Kong classic martial art films, not quite Huzha films, but the kind of martial arts that sort of exaggerate the skills a little bit. I'm not sure if you know, like, do you remember like that scene in Kill Bill where they talk about that killer move that if you do it, it makes your heart stop or something like that?
Yeah.
So like that's in this film as well. So that kind of style, I guess.
Okay.
Very well made, and it's a low budget film, but the actors clearly know how to fight, and that makes all the difference. I kind of watched the TV show. Well, I started watching the TV show Archer. It was better than I expected. Just looking, I've never been too fan of like weird animation, but it's a pretty funny show. I don't know if you've seen it.
I've heard of it. It's like a spy show.
Yeah, it's a spy comedy. It's an animated spy comedy. Very funny. If you have access to it, I'd recommend watching it.
Okay.
And so one thing that's not related to watching anything, but it's also part of the reason why I haven't been able to view as many things as I want to, is because, I've been kind of complaining on the show about, the quarantine and every day being kind of the same and being stuck at home all day. So what I decided to do is take some free online photography classes and then go out and practice taking pictures.
Okay.
So I've been trying to do that as a hobby. Like, I don't have any ambitions for it or anything like that, but it's fun. So I try to go out every day and, with my camera and try to practice my composition skills and snapping, whatever I think would look good on camera.
Yeah. Maybe you could put some on Twitter feed.
Once I get to the level of skill that I end up looking halfway decent, then yeah, maybe I will try to put some on.
I tend to take a lot of photos, but they just sit languishing on the hard drive.
Yeah. So that's, everybody can like learn to take better photos by just following a few rules and trying to kind of practice. Of course, practice, like everything we practice makes better, but I don't know. It seemed like a good way to break the monotony in these times of lockdown.
Some socially distant activity.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't have to interact with anybody. You can just go on a trail somewhere and snap away, and that's what I've been doing. I've been enjoying it. I've only been doing it for about a week, maybe a little over a week, but it's been fun.
That's great.
Okay. So that was our segment about what we've seen and what we've been doing. We also have a news segment, and I've only written down one piece of news, and feel free to add more if you want, Jason. But I'm not sure if you're familiar with the journal or the magazine Senses of Cinema.
Vaguely familiar with it. I read it a couple of times when I was in university, and unfortunately haven't been back since. But I remember it had a great collection of writing on there.
It does. And for the listeners who may not be aware, Senses of Cinema is an online Australian magazine although it has writers from all over the world because it's online, and it's hard to sum up what exactly its subject is, but it's a cinema magazine that its aim is to sort of bridge academic cinema writing with more like mainstream popular writing. So it kind of sits in between, but anybody can submit articles to it. And this week it released a call for contributors call. And it's also free, I should say, that you can support it if you want voluntarily, but you can read it for free online. There's no, it's not behind a paywall or anything like that. But if you're a writer like Jason is, like I am, and you might have an idea for an article about anything, maybe you can check out their calls for contributors, and maybe you have something that you've been kind of working on and you wanted to see in print in a relatively respected publication, and this would be a great opportunity for you.
Absolutely. It'd be one I should check out, and maybe I should also check out all the articles that are being published on there.
Yeah, and they, like I said, they're not. They publish things of all topics related to cinema. They even cover festivals. So I feel like this would be great for you, Jason, that do actually cover festivals very frequently. You actually follow them, so you might look into that. However, I have noticed that they do sort of theme their issues. So one issue is predominantly about something, and there's always articles that are not about that thing, but they try to kind of bundle each of their articles around a certain, like sometimes around a director or around a genre or around a country and stuff like that. So like one issue they might cover like this topic predominantly, although they'll have articles about other stuff as well. So that's something to keep in mind if you're submitting to them.
Well, it's a great opportunity, and I should check it out just to try and improve my own writing. I suppose I could get some inspiration. Maybe I might be scared off from doing festival articles if the quality's a lot better than what I put out.
I think it's a great practice, not because it's a respectable journal. Of course, the one that we write for as well there's also an editor behind that. So not to put down the cinema, but it's also great when there is an extra layer of scrutiny that helps you develop as a writer. Instead, because everybody can have a blog, but you're your own editor for any blog. And again, I'm not saying your blog is not well edited. It's fantastically the content is great, but it's a different game, so to speak, when there is someone else looking at your writing and giving you explicit feedback, or even when they outright reject you. That can also be a learning moment.
Sounds like something I'd like to take advantage of then. Absolutely,
yeah, I would recommend everyone can take advantage of that. Of course, I'm being a little bit hypocritical because I myself have been skeptical submitting for the same reasons that you mentioned. It can be a little bit intimidating.
Yeah, but that actually getting that feedback to improve is a massive part of being a writer, and it's something I'm looking for.
Absolutely. All right, so is there did you run into any other news that you think is worth mentioning for our listeners?
No, other than to just remind people that Japanese Film Festival Plus, the online film streaming service, are beginning to show films in various regions of the world. They're all free to view. You just have to go onto the website and see if your country is one of the ones that the films will be streamed in.
Yeah, and we mentioned this last week, and I put a link to that on the website where we post our episode. I might do that again just as a reminder if I remember to do that.
Yeah, I think America's going ahead very soon. So if you're in America and you're listening to this, check out Japanese Film Festival Plus, and you can see all sorts of great films.
All right. So that was it for our news segment. Now we're jumping to our main discussion of the film of this episode, and that is once again Wen Jiang's, and I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, although forgive me if I'm not, film Devils on the Doorstep. So as usual, Jason, would you like to summarize the film for us?
Okay, So the film takes place in 1945 in Rakama Terrace, a remote coastal village in Japanese-occupied Manchuria, China. A local peasant named Ma Da-san is shocked one night when an armed man crashes into his home with two men in burlap sacks. These two men are prisoners. One of them is Kosaburo Hanaya, a belligerent Japanese sergeant. The other is Dong Han-chen, a Chinese interpreter working for the Japanese army. The mysterious man instructs Ma Da-san to keep the two prisoners captive and interrogate them until he returns a few days later to collect them. If anything happens to the two men, Ma Da-san will be killed. Unfortunately for Ma Da-san, there is a regiment of Japanese soldiers living nearby. Caught in a tough predicament, Ma seeks the help of his fellow villagers while he keeps the prisoners in his cellar.
All right, thank you, Jason. That was a great plot summary. So before we begin our discussion, I should put out the disclaimer that neither of us is an expert on Chinese cinema, and in fact, please correct me if I'm mischaracterizing your knowledge of cinema. But at least for me, Chinese cinema from mainland China is one that I'm the least familiar of compared to other East Asian countries. I don't know if that's the case for you as well.
I'm in the same boat, so to speak.
Yeah. So our discussion, so that will certainly color our discussion, and our audience has to forgive us if we make some mistakes that someone better equipped to do this wouldn't make. But we can't just do the same countries over and over again. We have to try to spread out. So that's why we thought it was a good idea to choose a Chinese film as the final film of the first season of our Gateway films. However, with that being said, Wen Jiang is a director and actor that I'm perhaps the most familiar in Chinese cinema. I've seen most of his films. I think I just haven't seen his latest one, and of course I haven't seen all of them because he was an actor before he was a director, and I haven't seen all of the one that he's acted, but I've seen a few, and I've seen most of the films that he's directed. However, I understand that for you, Jason, this was a first-time watch?
Absolutely. This is the first time I've watched it, although I had heard of it after it won an award. And I was anticipating black comedy, and I wasn't sure when the comedy would start because it's really oppressive, and especially if you know the history of China.
Yeah. So what did you think of it? What? Maybe you can expand on what exactly you were expecting, and then what did you end up receiving when you finally watched it?
So I was expecting a black comedy, and for the first hour, that was kind of what I got. With sort of misinterpretations, some slapstick humor, and some character-based comedy, as you get these, forgive me for using the term, country bumpkins caught between like the Japanese military and the Chinese military, and trying to keep their heads above water, trying to survive this incredible situation. And the film just grew more and more oppressive and became very grim. And I was kind of surprised. I appreciate what the film tried to do.
Did it sort of based on, and we'll talk about awards later, but this has won some big awards. Did you find that it met your expectations? Did you feel a little bit disappointed?
I didn't find the comedy as funny as I thought it would be. But I appreciated how it depicted the Japanese and Chinese civilians interacting with each other. And I enjoyed the sort of taking a complex, I don't want to say enjoyed, I appreciated how it took a complex situation, which is the cause of so much international troubles between China and Japan, and manages to make quite complex drama out of it. I felt like it, even though it had a 2-hour running time, it flew by very quickly, and I think it did pretty well.
Okay, so I've seen this film before, and I've seen it many times before. It's I was about to say it's one of my favorite Chinese films, but I haven't seen that many, so that wouldn't be much of a high bar. But I do like it a lot. Although I have to say I liked it a lot more the first few times that I'd seen it, and then the last few times it's kind of I'm seeing its flaws a little more, including kind of a giant plot hole that I might get into later. But I one thing that I think differ with you is that I find this film very funny, especially the first half of the film. I can talk about that as well in a bit. But I first became, like I've mentioned in the show a few times, I tend to look at awards very often when I'm looking for film recommendations. So if something gets nominated or wins a prestigious award, and I've never heard of it, I usually go and watch it. And this one was a film that I kind of sought out after I was browsing in the mid 2000s at some point. It was late high school for me, I think. And, I was browsing the history of Cannes winners, and this was, of course, in 2000, this won the second highest prize in Cannes. And I said, "Oh, this is interesting. The poster looks intriguing. I'm gonna check it out." And I was very impressed by it. It was not at all what I was expecting. I thought a black and white Chinese war film. This is not gonna be. First of all, I hadn't read that much, and I didn't even expect a comedy, to be honest with you. And I expect more like a grim, even like maybe badly produced. From a technical standpoint, drama, but it was anything but that. So it exceeded my expectations at the time. Of course, they were low just because I was relatively ignorant to Chinese cinema. But I found it one thing that despite the flaws that I'm going to get into later in the film, I found the film's humor just works for me, especially the first half, like the wordplay that goes on with like, who are you, me, and then the word me, he just takes it as a name. And the whole thing about when he's cheated out of the gunman and then he introduces him to an elderly swordsman that just completely fails to cut someone's head off.
Yeah, one strike Liu.
Yeah, exactly. One strike Liu. And the interaction, even the villagers' faces, like just the way they talk with their high pitched voice, which, initially I felt like I thought he was racist to laugh at them, but I like I've mentioned before, I had a Chinese roommate and he laughed at that too. So I think now it's okay to laugh at how they speak sometimes, because it is exaggerated. Their sort of expressions and their tones are exaggerated for comedic effect. Or that uncle that has one screw loose and he just wants to kill everyone.
Yeah.
And then another thing that I always appreciate, something that Asian films especially do very often, is that they have this ability to switch from one genre to another in the same film, and this one does exactly that. It switches from comedy, at least in my view, funny comedy, although I do see how not everybody would find it funny, to something that is very, very grim, like you mentioned. And that final scene, well, not exactly the final scene, but the feast that they have with the Chinese villagers and the Japanese soldiers that ends up in essentially a massacre, and that's very dark. And then the ending of the film is also very dark.
Yeah, I can see why people would find it funny. It's just like, for me, it's humor I've seen before, and my sense of humor, I needed something else. And also there's like an oppressive atmosphere in the film. So I was just waiting. It was like waiting for the other shoe to drop. So I couldn't laugh because I knew something bad was going to happen.
Yeah, and a lot of the humor is at the expense of the characters.
Yeah, although like when you've got the Japanese army interpreter and the sergeants, they're mixing up their words. The interpreter's trying to save his own neck and soften the words of the Japanese soldiers. That is amusing. Yeah,
what he says. That's one of my favorite scenes. A lot of my discussion is going to be I really laughed at that scene. So sorry for that. But when he when he says, "Happy New Year, you're my grandfather and I'm your son," something like that. And then I love how the Wen Jiang character, so Ma Da-san, he takes it so earnest and he says, "No, no, no, no." He says, he looks at the logic of it. If I'm your grandfather, then you're my grandson, not my son. And that's so funny. And there's a bit of wordplay there because I don't remember, because like I said, I watched this with my Chinese roommate. And one thing I should say is that I noticed he was laughing at things that I didn't even get. So there's a lot of language humor here that is just completely missed in translation. But apparently, if I remember his explanation correctly, the word grandfather, grandson, and son they're easy to confuse. So that's why the Japanese guy got it wrong.
Is it a question like you have to change the intonation slightly?
Something like that. Yeah, I don't remember, but it was funny. And also another thing. Apparently, some of the like in Chinese, regional accents are very obvious, and some of the actors apparently are obviously not from the region that they're pretending to be. And my roommate thought that was quite funny. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but that's also another thing going on with this film.
I guess it goes to show that this film was made primarily for a Chinese audience.
I think so. And this was at a time where China was not necessarily exporting much of its cinema. So it makes sense, although it is also quite poignant that it features a significant Japanese cast.
Yeah, if you go on the IMDb, there's quite a few Japanese actors. It's not like
well-known Japanese actors.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, Kenya Sawada and Teruyuki Kagawa.
And it's clear from the director that he was not just a Chinese propaganda film where he was Japanese. The film is ironically titled Japanese Devils on the Doorstep, but it doesn't, like, ironically the film doesn't portray the Japanese as just this old-fashioned propaganda. Like most of Chinese propaganda films, where the Japanese are the devils and the Chinese are the innocent people that are just mindlessly slaughtered without any regards. They're both sides have complex characters, and I feel like is definitely, at the very least, I think Wen Jiang also had a Japanese audience in mind, not necessarily just Chinese audience.
Yeah, I appreciated how he found parallels between the different characters. Like, a lot of the Japanese soldiers came from a rural village themselves. And once the Chinese recognized that at the party, it was like a sort of a heartwarming thing. And you could see how connections would be made before inevitably war tears all that apart.
Yeah, and it's like, the paranoia that just war causes. Like, we're jumping the gun a little bit, but in that final scene, it seems like extremely inhumane what the Japanese do to the Chinese villagers. But if you this is very easy to miss, but if you really dissect that scene, you easily see that the whole thing is due to the Japanese paranoia that cannot possibly believe that the events that transpired with the prisoners are a coincidence or are just a lack of the draw for the villagers. He thinks that there is a conspiracy happening here, and he needs to be ahead of it and strike first before they strike him. Like when he keeps saying, where are your men hiding, or is he coming with like armed men to kill us or something like that to that drunk Chinese man.
Yeah, there's a bit of foreshadowing earlier. Captain Inokichi Sakatsuka, played by Kenya Sawada, when he gets the Japanese soldier back, he's sort of questioning him, although it's more like an interrogation. One of his subordinates says, "You can't trust what the Chinese say. When they say east, you should think west." And as you said, they go into this village with paranoia infecting their behavior. And the captain, he's rigid. All of his men are relaxed apart from him, and he's constantly questioning people. And Kenya Sawada gives a magnificent performance, just really menacing, this hunk of muscle, and he's like an immovable object. And so when he gets it in his mind that Ma-da-san could be a threat, there's like sort of dread inevitability to what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I really like in his interactions with the villagers. There's a very subtle shift there that he does that you can clearly see. And this is a large credit to his acting, but also credit to Wen Jiang's directing. Is that he's legitimately connecting with these villagers, like you say. He's seeing the parallels that they have, that how well they get along, but you can also see him fighting that sort of his inner what's the word I'm looking for, appreciation of the Chinese villagers.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's resisting that, and you can, like, when he smiles, he's genuinely smile, but then he draws himself back and he's like peeling the things out of his hat. I'm not sure exactly what he's doing there, but you can see the tense, sort of the inner battle within himself, that he's like, he's thinking, of course this is just conjecture, but you can imagine he's thinking something along the lines, I can't be fooled by these. They're nice, they seem nice, but they're gonna kill us. They're gonna try to kill us. It's either us or them, or something like that.
Yeah, it's like with his, I think it's his hat. It's like
yeah.
It's like feeling that, it's like reminding him that he's got a duty to perform.
Absolutely. So this, like I mentioned earlier, this was not a typical, and this was intentional on the part of Wen Jiang, where he didn't want to follow what most of Chinese film and literature was doing at the time, to show just like a very one-sided view of the war. Although that's also, the Japanese did commit atrocities in China, so that can be denied. But it's also, like a lot of the times issues are a lot more, like, relationships are a lot more complicated than that. And he wanted to show that. And by that very virtue, China banned the film for some time before it was allowed to be released, just because of that, because it didn't appreciate this, two-sidedness of the film, multidimensionality, but also didn't appreciate, our hero being killed, being executed by the Chinese force. At the time, at the end, it didn't appreciate the Chinese villagers being portrayed as, like you said, country bumpkins. It didn't appreciate, suggesting that, because China's, especially at the time, although 2000 may have been after that, I'm not exactly sure where China's politics are right now regarding to the war, but China held that it was the Communist Party that defeated the Japanese, which is partly true, of course, but it's also, China received help from the Soviets, from the Americans, from the United States, and the Chinese government has always tried to downplay that. Like most communist parties, even Eastern European communist parties, it was always the communists defeated the Nazis, and in China the communists defeated the Japanese. And the movie doesn't necessarily deny that, but it also doesn't necessarily espouse it wholeheartedly. It doesn't glorify the communist resistance. It seemed more like, especially at the end, you actually see the speech of the emperor where he says that we surrendered, and that seemed that's not something that you see very often in Chinese films before that time.
The commander is flanked by Americans, and Chiang Kai-shek was getting help from the Americans as well as the Russians. But again, he talks about the Japanese civilians also suffering, and he makes those links between people. He sees the more humane he sees the humanity in people before he turns into a robot and then issues his proclamations. When the Chinese army come in to arrest all of the Japanese soldiers.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've got two instances where, you've got numerous instances where the Japanese are portrayed not as devils or monsters, and there's constant reminder that they're humans as well. And then there's the Emperor's speech, and then you've got Major Gao's speech at the end. Yeah,
and especially for the first hour of the film, the Japanese presence in the village is mostly benign. I mean, of course, you do have a bunch of people making fun of the villagers and flexing their muscles a little bit, but it's mostly like, especially the captain of the region, he just wants to be popular. Like, you can see that. He just wants to, to have people, like in line and like pay respect to him, and he gives the children candy. So it's almost like farcical, actually. And that's what I would characterize this film as, a farce, more or less. But it's not until the end where he's put to shame by the other commander that he actually becomes violent. But at most of the film, you even get the impression that he just doesn't really care about the war. He just likes his position and he has no intention of harming these people. In fact, we rarely see him actually mistreat any of the villagers other than in words and trying to say, hey, make sure the water is warm next time or something like that.
Yeah, these guys are in Ma Dasan's village, the occupation forces. They're like the Japanese naval reserve, so they're not necessarily frontline soldiers. And it's only when they encounter Captain Sakatsuka, who's like, I guess, he's the veteran military guy. He's in the army. You can guess that he's seen a lot of combat because he's got the medals, and he's a brutal killer as well. That's when they turn into type and start killing people.
Yeah, and he's also what's the last name of the commander? Sakatsuka. Sakatsuka. Yeah, I'm terrible with names, but he is pretty memorable. But yeah, you can also see very clearly that he is exactly like the ideal product of the Japanese propaganda machine. Like, he's not necessarily like a bad. Well, that's relative, but he's someone that maybe someone like Ma Da-san could get along, but he's just years and years of this divine right that the Japanese emperor fed to his soldiers. That he's essentially the poster child for that philosophy, for that ideology. Whereas the captain that is in the village is not necessarily a product of that. He is more of someone who probably sees this as a job and nothing more.
Yeah, he's more laid back, and he likes marching around with his troops and going for a swim,
playing the Japanese naval marching song.
Yeah, and handing out sweets to kids. So and he's definitely more of the benign figure of the two. Yeah, which is not to downplay the Japanese occupation of Manchuria. Was pretty brutal. There's like casual racism, which is thrown out by the Japanese. And it feels like a natural build-up. Like when you hear the nationalist propaganda from various soldiers and the racism, it feels like a natural build-up to sort of a massacre at the end. Exactly, and that's, and you can kind of draw the same parallels for the, like the Nazi occupation in Europe. It's, of course, that does not excuse anyone of the atrocities, whether they were just the person giving the orders or the lowly soldier who followed it. But you can also very clearly, see what is the result of propaganda and what is, something that is truly evil versus something that is just, years and years of shoving in, bad information into your brain. Yeah. One thing that I was gonna, so that's one point that I think Wen Jiang, while making the film, wanted to get across. I don't know if you've seen, are you familiar with what's the name of the director? Yang Jimo? No. Although, funny enough, one of his first, Wen Jiang's first acting role, either his first or one of his first, or the role that made him popular anyway, was Yang Jimu's Red Sorghum. I don't know if you've seen that film. No. Okay. I mean, it's a worth watch. It's a relatively well-known and highly acclaimed Yang Jimu film, and it stars Wen Jiang. And that's what he was only like 24 at the time or something, and that's what made him popular. But no, Masaki Kobayashi. Oh yeah. He's a director that he made a lot of films about the war. There are a couple of references to him, and I don't know if they're intentional or they're just coincidence. But the translation scene, where like you mentioned himself, where the Chinese guy translates the Japanese guys wrong just so he won't get him in trouble. Yeah. That there's an identical scene in Masaki Kobayashi's The Human Condition trilogy. That's also set in Manchuria. Yes, and in the third part, they're captured, they're prisoners of war in Russia, and he's trying to say something that we should collaborate. Like the main character, who's played by Tetsuya Nakadai, wonderful actor. Sword of Doom.
Yes, exactly. A lot of films. There's just, it would take forever to just list the great films that he's been. But he is famously in this the Human Condition trilogy by Masaki Kobayashi, and he's trying to like essentially like say something. He's the character that he plays is a pacifist, and when he's captured, he's trying to say that I have no ill in my heart, and I've always tried to not kill and whatever. I don't remember exactly because it's been a while since I've seen it, but something like that. And the translator is doing exactly the opposite. Is translating Tetsuya Nakadai's character as though he's saying something very bad and cursing and condemning and saying racist things against the Chinese and whatnot. And this is like the scenes, and that's also black and white. So the scenes are very reminiscent of each other, but they have the opposite effect. Now the guy is translating it to actually make him come off as nicer, whereas for the Human Condition, they're making him come out as more racist. And the other thing is, Masaki Kobayashi did a 4-hour documentary on the War Crimes Tribunal called the Tokyo Trials, and he's kind of making the same point that most Japanese soldiers, and especially the people who were convicted in the Tokyo Trials, were not necessarily guilty of the atrocities. They were just products of the propaganda machine. And kind of, I don't know if this is a direct reference, but Wen Jiang is, in my opinion, kind of making exactly the same point here.
Yeah, like he's making the point that these people who don't know any better are being fed all of this information about this foreign country, and a lot of the soldiers from Japan, they're from small villages. They don't have that much experience, and they've joined an organization which has been occupying China for over 50 years, I think. And so, like, all of their beliefs have been confirmed by what they see on the ground. And I feel like there's a similar dynamic with Nazis, in the sense that they recruited from the countryside people who weren't that cosmopolitan and who had limited worldviews.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's related to, you know, what we talked about last episode in Memories of Murder about the banality of evil. It's sort of, you know, it doesn't necessarily, you know, everybody is capable of, you know, performing terrible acts if they're, you know, taken advantage of just in the right way. And, you know, you can say that about Germans, or you can say that about Japanese people during World War II. A lot of them were, you know, didn't necessarily even understand the ideology they were part of. They just had this, they were, you know, fed this very strong sense of patriotism and you know, very narrow idea of what patriotism is, that it is this way and you have to do this, otherwise you've shamed your family and you're shamed your, you know, your country and whatever. And both of these themes, just to go back to what I was talking about earlier, are very strong, are very strongly present in Masaki Kobayashi's filmography, and also Kinji Fukasaku's filmography that I've mentioned before, how much I like him. And Masaki Kobayashi is another director that I really like a lot, and I've seen most of his films. And I think both of them kind of talk about themes that you know, that are present in this film, in Devils on the Doorstep by Wen Jiang. And actually, I feel like he probably must have watched a bunch of Japanese war films when he made this film, because it seems like, even in style, it seemed very reminiscent. Like some of his camera works and his fast cutting and his like shaky camera work and handheld camera reminded me a lot of Kinji Fukasaku.
Yeah.
He has a lot of that, and even the topics and how he treats these topics were very reminiscent for Kinji Fukasaku, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can see that. Like the use of close-ups and the shaky camera during the arguments, especially. Yeah,
and that's such a great technique because it kind of puts you into the disorientation that the characters feel.
Yeah, it's just one crazy thing after another in this incredibly dangerous situation. And so you totally feel for Maada-san.
Absolutely. When I was writing my personal notes, I wrote down that. Did I write this down? I forget. But I remember thinking something like, he has very little agency in the film. It's just, like it just bad things happen to him, just bad luck happens to him, and he just, all he wants to do is just to be left alone. And most of the villagers, they just want to be left alone. They just want grain. Like that's their ambition in life. They have no political ideology, but it's just these bad things keep happening to them one after another. First, he's like two prisoners are dropped onto him. Then the guy doesn't come. Then his assassination attempts fail, and then like finally the last thing that he tries also fails.
Yeah, you absolutely feel sorry for him because like it's 1945, the war's going to end at some point, and all Maada-san wants to do is just be with Yua, and like suddenly World War II and all the messy politics in Asia have crashed into his lap, and he cannot escape from it.
Yeah. Also, a little bit unrelated, but there's some great. Speaking of the visual aesthetic of the film or the shots, there's some great shots of the Great Wall, and I don't know if they were real or if they were recreations.
I'm not sure myself either. I enjoyed the massacre scene when you've got the lighthouse lights sweeping across the landscape, and it highlights Sakatsuka as he relieves Sergeant Hanaya. Just tells him, you don't have to kill yourself, the war's over.
Yeah. No, that was a very like an amazing way to end a scene like that. Just that it capitalized on the irony.
Yeah.
Speaking of on which, like I mentioned that I do think the film has some flaws, and I do think some scenes kind of drag out a little bit more than I felt, like some of the arguments that they have. Like after a while, kind of like it's funny for a little bit, then it kind of drags out a little bit more than it has to. Like when he, like the two guys, like say, cut my head, and then he just grabs the axe and he says, "Oh, don't push me."
Yeah, it goes through a couple of variations of that.
Yeah, I felt certain scenes to kind of drag out a little bit too long, and then the film has, in my view, kind of a gaping plot hole.
Okay.
In the fact that, so they decide, so like 2/3 in the film, they decide they're going to turn in the prisoners in exchange for grain, right?
Yeah.
They have a sector of the Japanese army right there. Why not turn it into them instead of go all the way to a different town and to see another captain?
You're right. Earlier in the film, one of the villagers says that he's in good with the captain who's in the local village. I can only, that would make any handover of a prisoner much easier. I can only surmise that Hanaya wanted to go back to his original base, and so he got them to take him there, which ironically puts them in danger.
No, that's true. That's true. There are several explanations, but which could theoretically justify it, but none of them are 100% satisfactory. Like wherever they surrendered him, it's safe to surmise that he eventually then he'll be safe, so he could make back to his way back to the base. Like they wouldn't, like the naval section of the Japanese army wouldn't keep him. They would just send him to the appropriate parts of the country, of the army.
I think it's like they spent the film trying not to disturb these great forces, and they needed a way for like the Japanese to be drawn into the story as a hostile force.
Yeah. I mean, another reason is I thought like the local captain, the naval captain, would be mad to find out that
someone was under his nose.
Yeah, but he would find that out anyway. It's not like they would not, like, if they took it to another sergeant or another captain, like it would not make the news to him. Like it seemed, because they had to take him out of town without the Navy finding out. So that seems like an extra risk that they had to calculate for.
Yeah.
So it seems like, there are ways to explain it. Like you said, maybe they just, wanted to, I don't know, not disturb the locals, but that would happen eventually. So I don't know. It's like I've never been able to make that not bother me. It's always bother me every time I watch this film.
I suppose, like, you imagine that people in that situation, when the Japanese come, the adults always react with fear. Like Yue hides, and the men are constantly worried about being killed. And like they've heard what's happened in Nanking, and they know the history lessons of what happens during the Japanese invasion of Manchuria at the turn of the century. So there would be like there is a palpable sense of fear, and that like throughout the story there's this idea that they don't want to disturb the Japanese or the Chinese army. They want to try and like navigate their way through the middle. And so it doesn't make sense if you've got like a friendly naval captain or a friendly-ish naval captain who you can sort of gauge his reaction, or like living right just down the road, and instead of going to him, you take a captured Japanese prisoner who's been with you for like a year to an army base. Like some of these soldiers, surely they must have been involved in some of the massacres up and down China. Like you're provoking something.
I suppose, but I have one comment in that I don't know that these particular villagers would be necessarily aware of all the specifics of the Japanese atrocities at this point. Like when like the guy looks at a telephone and he's completely amazed. He's clearly never seen it before. He's shouting at it while he's communicating with the other villager, the village chief, or whatever he is. So I don't know. I got the impression that, like, yeah, they know there's a war and they know that the Japanese have killed Chinese, obviously, because there's a war. But I don't know that they're necessarily well informed on the war.
I think at the time, like, the Nanking massacre wasn't widely reported.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess if like these people are in a remote coastal village. So it's possible that they don't know what's happened, but surely at some point they've heard something.
Yeah, eventually, yeah. And like I also got the I agree with you. They did try to stay on the good side of the Japanese that occupied their village, but I also don't know that they were absolutely terrified of them, because, for instance, like in that one scene where two Japanese soldiers go very close to the house, and they tell him to stay within that circle. The first time, as soon as they tell him, as soon as they turn their heads around, he like leaves. Like he's not like he's scared, obviously, because they have guns, but he doesn't look like they're completely terrified of them, or like Dasan Ma when he has that cleaver or that hatchet that he's about to attack them if they go close to the place where they're hiding the prisoners.
Yeah, like
so it doesn't look like they're 100% suppressed.
I suppose you could say like they're used to it by now. Like the Japanese have been occupying the place for quite a while, and
absolutely, yeah.
They're just trying to get along quietly, which is why like the two prisoners being in the village is such a massive issue for them.
Yeah, I mean, they just want to live their lives, in quiet. And so go ahead, please.
Yeah, the interpreter, like the Japanese have been there for, I think, around 50 years at that point. So the interpreter's clearly just taken on another job. And I suppose they're not concerned about wider events.
Yeah, and so moving to slightly to a related but slightly different topic, the villagers are trying to live their lives as normal as they can. Despite the Japanese occupation, you sort of get the impression that they don't care that much, as long as the Japanese don't directly interfere with their business, which is not political in any way. They're concerned with livestock, with grain, with being able to be warm at night and stuff like that. So it doesn't look like the Japanese occupation is affecting them, up to the point where the prisoners are dropped in the middle of the night, which, like you said, completely disturbs their lifestyle. Do you think the director is kind of trying to make the point here that you just cannot be removed from current events, that they eventually, if you try to just kind of live independent, because that's a frequent point that the villagers make. Even this is stated explicitly when they're trying to talk about, handing over the prisoners, they say, you know what, we'll just hand over the prisoners, we'll get the rice, and that's fine. So they're trying to like stay as neutral and as out of it as possible. But it's just, I wonder if the director's making the case here that you can't, that's impossible. Eventually, current events will catch up with you. So it can either be, you must choose either one side or the other, but you just can't ignore it forever.
Yeah, it's like you have to act, even if the world will force you to act in some way. I thought he was depicting another side to Manchuria, which, like, with a lot of propaganda films, it would be non-stop action and melodrama, whereas we get like day-to-day life in this village, and it's quiet, and people are inured to the Japanese occupation, so they're used to it. And I thought that was an interesting view of the conflict.
Yeah, and so to get back to what you just said, you have to act, and I find it, intentionally ironic that the only time that Dasan, my character, is acting instead of reacting, because for most of the film you can just say that he is reacting to what's ever happening. The first time where he decides to take action, which is at the end of the film after everything has happened, he is executed for it.
Yeah, it's an ironic fate that the person who he spent the film trying to keep alive is the person who ends up executing him, and he dies in a way that what was it, one strike Liu?
Yeah.
Like you can see,
smile.
like, he's fine now that he's finally taken action. There's a smile on his face, so there's some satisfaction that he's seized some control, even though his existence has ended.
Yeah, although I did count, his head did not roll 9 times; it only rolled 6 times. Unless, because that's what he said, their head rolls exactly 9 times and then they smile when that guy's like, upping or exaggerating Liu's abilities.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although maybe it rolled 3 times before the camera started on it.
Yeah. Well, and then the shot turns into color. What did you make of that?
So yeah, that's that I was just gonna comment on that, and that could be just me seeing things where it's not there, but it kind of goes to the point that we're talking about, that these villagers saw the world as black and white,
yeah.
and only at the end he's finally kind of to see the complications. Right before he dies, he's seeing the colors of the world, where like how more complex the real world is versus the idyllic life that he had been part of for most of his existence.
Yeah,
that's what I made of it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that reading. Also, like the title "Devils on the Doorstep," you would just obviously it's a slur used for foreign invaders in China, but it can also be applied to Mahada-san's neighbors who keep piling on work for him to do and keep putting him in danger. And it can also be applied to sort of the Chinese army, which comes in and ultimately executes him, orders his execution.
He just can't catch a break.
Yeah, so there's no easy interpretation of who the devil at the doorstep is. It could be anything. It's just like this. He's just stuck having to deal with all this.
Yeah, and apparently, and it's that's one of the things that the Chinese, film bureau didn't appreciate. The portrayal of the Chinese in the country. They weren't, not only there weren't just the innocent victims that usually like propaganda films used to portray, but they were, kind of buffoonish, as you said, and they didn't like that at all. Although I guess eventually they gave away to it because the film was eventually released in China. However, apparently, reading just the Wikipedia article, the Japanese in this film had Japanese producers or Japanese advisors, something like that. I'm not exactly sure what Japan's role in this film was, but they definitely had something to do. It wasn't a pure Chinese production. There was some Japanese help in it. Although I'm not sure to what extent. I haven't been able to find much information in it.
Yeah, there's I read the same Wikipedia article, and it's like a Japanese producer, and on the IMDb page there's a Japanese cast, and Wen Jiang actually went to China Drama Academy with some of the Japanese actors, according to the Wikipedia article.
But yeah, they also had objection to it, and I think I remember reading a review from someone claiming that the objection was about the final massacre scene. The Japanese thought he portrayed the Japanese soldier a little bit too harshly, although I'm not sure that that's correct, but
I don't know. Having read some stuff around Nanking Massacre or Nanjing Massacre, I think the film adequately dealt with it in a tasteful manner, I should say.
Yeah, and I think, but that's probably a minority opinion. I don't think because the film did relatively well in Japan when it was finally released there.
Like a nationalist dissent, I suppose.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, so let's see what else I have here. Yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, we already talked about that a little bit, but the film is sort of a farce in the sense that, you know, a lot of that happen is just lack and circumstance, and it just things just happen to the characters, and they're just reacting. This is one of the few I was very impressed by the script, and I don't remember if it was Wen Jiang's script or if he collaborated with someone. Yeah, there's a bunch of screenwriter, but he is one of them, and he usually writes his own films. But it's one of the examples where I see writing where the main character doesn't have that much agency and is mostly reacting to stuff. And that's usually a big no-no in writing. Like if you've ever taken a creative writing class, that's one of the things that they say you should never do. Your character should never be passive and should be active. And here, in fact, in fairness, the character is active, but it's always reacting to something. He's never creating circumstances. He's just responding to them. And I thought that was very skilled on behalf of the screenwriters that are able to pull like a fascinating character within those norms that are normally considered, using techniques that are normally considered, that are normally frowned upon in creative writing.
It definitely does make for an interesting drama. It would go into the realms of unbelievability if he was orchestrating some sort of rebellion. It would take it into action territory, which dozens of other films do. And so I appreciated that it got the complex sort of political and social situation in Manchuria and touched on it in a relatively light manner. And we were able to see it from the perspective of someone at the very bottom of society.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's also another great, obviously it's not, there are other examples of it, but it is not very common to see something like a major world war from the lowest possible perspective, or someone from the lowest class, to put it crudely.
Yeah, it's like you said earlier, it's probably making the comment that like you can't hide from big world events.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, have you seen or heard of any of the other films that Wen Jiang has made?
No, this is my first one.
Okay. I would recommend. He's a fascinating director. So the first film that he directed, In the Heat of the Sun, is kind of similar. It's almost autobiographical. It's about a bunch of kids growing up in 60s China or 70s China, something like that. And then he did another one in 2007, which I'm forgetting the name. He was also in Rogue One, in Star Wars Rogue One. He was one of the two Chinese guys. The other one was
Donnie Yen, wasn't it?
Yeah. So the other Chinese guy was Wen Jiang.
Okay.
I'm assuming he only did it for the money.
Yeah, he needed a new beach house or something.
Yeah, or he was funding. Yeah, he did The Sun Also Rises in 2007. Which I remember very little about. And then he did another one, it's a sort of a comedy, very similar. It's another period piece, but it's more of a gangster comedy, Let the Bullets Fly, which stars Chow Yun-fat as well. And he stars in most of the movies that he directs, but this one stars Chow Yun-fat as well. It's also very funny. I wouldn't say it's as poignant and as good overall as Devils on the Doorstep, in my opinion, but it's possibly funnier. So if you didn't think Devils on the Doorstep wasn't funny enough, but you maybe want to check out this director, Let the Bullets Fly is, in my opinion, even funnier.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Yeah, and it's one of those films that is easy to find. It's not obscure or anything like that.
I'm sure I've heard the title somewhere.
It came out in 2010, and it made the news around that time. So it was fairly popular, as far as a Chinese film goes.
Okay.
Okay, so is there anything else that we in our discussion that you felt we left and you'd like to go over?
No. The only use the only use of music was the Japanese Imperial Navy March.
Yeah, it was very prominent in the film.
Yeah. Beyond Wikipedia entry, I didn't find too much about it.
So this was the first time for you, and we've already made the disclaimer that neither of us is that well versed in Chinese cinema. But how would you rank this film? And did you find it to be accessible? Did you find it that it was a good entry point into either Chinese cinema or Asian cinema in general?
I found the story really intelligently constructed. All the ironies and the mirroring in the film. I found the performances quite compelling. If I were recommending this to people, I would add the proviso. I would say it's a black comedy with the proviso that it gets very grim. I think it's in terms of Chinese cinema. I'm not sure how much of a good entry point it is. It seems atypical for like a war film from China, but that's based on my limited experience. For that reason, I think I would recommend people check it out, I guess, just to see something different from the sort of propaganda films and to see Chinese history from a different perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with pretty much everything you said. I also hold, I do hold this film in high regard. Obviously, that's why I recommended it. I do find it a little bit funnier than you do, but that's based on my personal experience to all the people that I've shown this film or I've recommended this film. It's a 50-50 split. Some people, find it funny. Others just don't necessarily get it, or not don't get it, but the humor doesn't exactly appeal to them personally. So it's a fairly common reaction, I think. But I would say that just this film, it was one of my early Asian film experiences, and it did make me kind of seek the genre more. In fact, after this one, I did seek out a few more Asian war films. Like another one that I saw immediately after this, because it was recommended to me as similar to this, was another Chinese film called Assembly, which was released in 2007. And that is more about the Chinese Civil War that followed the Second World War. And that's another one film that's not at all similar to this, but it's also a Chinese war film that is maybe not 100% propaganda. It deals with a few more complicated issues. Although it's still safe enough for the Chinese Communist Party, so it doesn't defy party lines or anything like that. But it's still a compelling film.
Here's a question I've got for you. Do you think that China banning it had just as much to do with the portrayal of the Japanese soldiers and the way they consume and espouse propaganda? Were there uncomfortable parallels, do you think?
It's certainly possible. Of course, I can, put myself in the head of the Chinese Censor Bureau and guess what it is, why they banned it. But I fully agree that that's possible. The film is certainly not, although it's somewhat subtle, it's certainly not kind on propaganda, and it's obviously making fun of it. And that, whether or not the film bureau saw that or it went over their heads, I don't know. But if they did, that could have certainly been a part of it.
I thought it was an interesting aspect, and I appreciated what they did with the Japanese soldiers.
And like I said, I don't know. I can't say definitely that this is a good gateway film, a good entry into either Chinese or Asian film, but it was so for me. So that's hopefully it will be for someone else too.
Yeah, I'd say it's a good film. It's like the humor didn't quite land for me, but if it would probably work for other people. Okay. Everything else about the film is great.
Yeah, it's certainly worth checking out, no matter what your stance is.
Yeah, I think my sense of humor is just really cracked.
Yeah, no, it's comedy, especially something that is even harder to bring from culture to culture, or from language to language, especially.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was the Abbott and Costello part of the Who wordplay joke. Like that some people might find that funny, and others just it's not for them.
I think the comment that you made about your Chinese roommates laughing at all of the wordplay and the regional accents is like key
even
to that
stuff that I didn't get, stuff that I didn't get.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was our discussion for the 2000 Chinese films Devils on the Doorstep. So like I mentioned last time, this is the final episode of the first season of Heroic Purgatory, an Asian cinema podcast. And this, like we mentioned multiple times in the show, this was a season dedicated to gateway films. And we did 8 episodes. And of course, in each of those episodes, we talked about other films, not just the films that the episode was about. So hopefully this first season of Heroic Purgatory gave you something, either for you or for some of your friends that are not necessarily familiar with Asian cinema and, want to check it out. And hopefully we gave you a good list of films to kind of try to immerse yourself into a diverse array of Asian films. We're going to do one more episode, which is going to be a Christmas special, and it's going to be released around Christmas time. We're not sure exactly what day. And also, we're not sure exactly what that episode going to be. It's going to be, more casual, more loose format, something just to have fun with. And then we're going to take a short break, maybe a month or so, to kind of plan out what season 2 is going to be. And then we're going to resume Heroic Purgatory with a new season and a new theme around that season. So maybe I didn't plan this at all, but we started this as an experiment, Jason, and we said let's try it, let's see what happens. How is it going to go? So what was your impression of our first season so far?
I really enjoyed it. It was professionally produced, so and it's a lot of fun talking about all of the different films that we've seen and our impressions and our experiences. And I think people can gain something from this, like being able to discover new titles. And I think that's at least something I tried to set out to do when I started writing. And I'm glad you brought me on to the podcast, and you've done such an amazing job producing each episode. So thank you. Yeah,
thank you. And yeah, that's sort of if our audience gets nothing else out of this podcast, it's I would be glad if they just got more recommendation. And that's one reason why I like the first segment of each episode that we talked about what we've seen, because even though we don't necessarily, they have nothing to do with our with the main part of the episode. It's just, it gives us an opportunity to catch up, relax into the recording session, and also, maybe give ideas out into the world as to, we give a 30-second, spiel of what we thought of it, and maybe that will encourage someone to check the same thing out or whatnot. So, hopefully our audiences will appreciate that and find them valuable and at least get some good recommendations out of each episode.
Absolutely. And it's been a lot of fun, and I hope everybody listening's gained something from it. And keep following the podcast on Twitter and on the website, and let us know what you think.
Absolutely. Yes. So that's I think that's it for our episode, unless you have anything else to add.
Nope.
Okay, so this has been yet another episode, the final episode of the first season of Heroic Purgatory, an Asian cinema podcast. Please check us out keep listening or keep following us for the Christmas special a couple of weeks from now or somewhere around then. And then stay tuned. Don't unsubscribe for us if you're subscribed, because we will come back with the second season after we decide exactly what theme and what topic that season will revolve around. As always, stay safe, keep watching films, and enjoy the upcoming holidays as well.